This town certainly has changed, and not at all for the better.
Hey everyone, this is Mike. Today I'm going to be talking about my favorite job in Final Fantasy XIV, which, as you can see by the title, is Gunbreaker. And one of the reasons why I really like this job is the way that it was designed to feel a lot like a melee DPS. Even if you compare it to all of the other melees, Gunbreaker is still one of the higher CPM jobs in the game, and that is a lot of fun for me to play, because back when I started out in Heavensward, I was somebody that mained Ninja, and Ninja has of course got the attack speed buff, and then also with all the weaving that comes into it as well. Ninja is very CPM intensive, and Gunbreaker is kind of the same. Now, look at their burst windows as well. They have a 1 minute burst window with a 30-second like off burst window, I guess you could say, with their Gnashing Fang, and that makes it so that it is kind of reminiscent of how Ninja used to be because of the 1 minute burst window trick windows. And then of course Gunbreaker with its No Mercy feeling kind of similar to that. And then also just having to line everything up kind of made me reminded of the old Stormblood Machinist, because Machinist was all about being able to keep their cooldowns aligned for that 1 minute wildfire window, whereas with Gunbreaker it's kind of similar to that as well. You need to make sure you use that Gnashing Fang on cooldown, there we go, I was looking for the right word, but that you use that Gnashing Fang on cooldown, the blasting zone, and then see where you want to use your rough divides as well, because do you want to use it for movement, or do you want to save it up so that you can put it into that No Mercy window as well. And then everything lines up beautifully if you did it right over the course of the whole fight, because it's not just those few skills that you want to line up, your Bloodfest is going to come into play as well, and that is what makes it really interesting to me, because your No Mercy window is not always going to be the same. Sometimes, like within the opener, you're going to have your full burst, I guess we'll call it, with your Bloodfest into that one. Then later down the line, depending on like how many times you've done your No Mercy, is going to slightly vary every time until you hit that 3-minute mark, and you're going to be at the start again, because that is one of the things that I kind of disliked about how Machinist ended up being in Stormblood towards the end. Because at the beginning, I believe Machinist would only be able to overheat during their wildfire when you had Barrel Stabilizer up, and Barrel Stabilizer was 2 minutes at the start of Stormblood, meaning that you had two variants of wildfire. But towards the end of the expansion, wildfire basically just looked the same. The only thing that would change was whether or not you had hypercharge at the start, and then you would blow up your turret at the end. But that didn't even contribute to the wildfire's damage anyways. But with Gunbreaker it changes, like you have your opener No Mercy, then you have a second one, a third one, and then I believe the fourth one is the same again as your opener, and then you had to adjust your cartridges accordingly. And this is really fun for me. Now also, the fact that Gunbreaker feels a lot like a melee DPS really adds to the enjoyment that I have from the job, because as I said, I've always played melees a lot. I mained melee for pretty much the start of when I started playing in Heavensward. In Stormblood, when I started out as well, I mained Ninja for a little bit until I started playing Caster in a different static. Then for Unending Coil of Bahamut, played Ninja as well. So I have a lot of experience on melees, and that is also one of the reasons why Gunbreaker just feels so good to play, because of that Gnashing Fang combo, the continuation that adds into it. You have a lot of dual weaving going on, and that just makes it feel so much more exciting to play. But of course, dual weaving on a tank is also a little bit of a negative fact when it comes to just gameplay wise. As a tank, you will have to reposition bosses, and repositioning a boss while you are dual weaving is incredibly annoying, because a lot of the bosses in this game do not stick to you. I think one of the only bosses that really sticks to you is Twintania from Unending Coil, because like the smallest step you take, Twintania will be following you. But if we, like for example, we have Alexander Ultimate in the background, if we're taking a look at Living Liquid and then Brute Justice as well, which is the one that I'm tanking, the bosses don't really stick to you. You have to run away for a while and then they follow you, and you can maybe get one off GCD in there, and that kind of ruins it a little bit for Gunbreaker at certain points. Of course, with Living Liquid, I got kind of lucky at the fact that your burst windows do not align with movement, so you don't really have to move the boss when you have heavy double weaving going on. But on Brute Justice, for example, in the second phase, there are two parts where I do need to move the boss a bit, and where dual weaving gets a little bit more annoying to do. And you'll also see that, because this is my last ultimate clear, I actually got rank 21 on this one, so I'm pretty happy with it. But you'll see that I position Brute Justice a little bit differently than you might have seen in my first Gunbreaker clear, or some of the other ultimate videos that I posted. The reason why there's so much ultimate content, like gameplay in the background the last few days, is because, as I said in yesterday's video, I'm not really playing the game a lot right now. I'm just logging in to get my weekly ultimate clear done and then expert through that. So that's why most of the gameplay you're seeing is basically ultimate the last few days. But yeah, that out of the way. So you'll see that I'm repositioning the boss differently now to prepare for mechanics so that the boss does not need to move as much, because that is one of the drawbacks of Gunbreaker. Moving bosses around during your burst windows, during that Gnashing Fang, is very annoying, because dual weaving whilst moving a boss is not really something that happens on its own. And not only that, but also when using defensive cooldowns. In certain parts of the fight you'll have to press 1, 2, maybe even 3 defensive cooldowns together, like for example, say, towards the end of Living Liquid, where he's doing the splashes into the big Great White AoE, I forgot the name, but then you're in your Gnashing Fang. I of course now do it after my Gnashing Fang combo, but you also want to press that Heart of Light, you want to press your 30%, which is, I forget the name, doesn't matter, Nebula, and then you also want to press your Heart of Stone. So those are 3 of GCDs, and if you have to find a place where you can double weave that together with your burst, it's going to be a bit weird. Like later in the fight in Alexander Prime, I have a part like that as well, where I am in my full burst, but I also need to weave all of my defensive cooldowns because I'm going to be taking a very heavy hitting tank buster. So a lot of Gunbreaker optimization is also where you can find places to weave those extra cooldowns that you need as a tank, because of course you are not a melee DPS, you are actually a tank. So even though your gameplay feels a lot like playing a melee DPS because of all the dual weaving, because of all the fast actions, of course you don't have an attack speed buff, which actually, if you've played Gunbreaker in PvP, they do have an attack speed buff there when you're using cartridges, so it's really cool. But in PvE they don't have that, of course. But you do have a lot of dual weaving going on, and because of that, some of the duties that you have as a tank, like moving the boss, like weaving cooldowns, can be a little bit tricky at times. And then another part of your optimization becomes finding how and where you want to weave those off-global cooldowns, so that you can get all of your defensive stuff planned out as well. Of course, maybe use them a little bit earlier than you normally would, because you're going to be doing a Gnashing Fang combo or something like that, and you don't have enough space to weave those defensive actions. Or of course, you can delay certain skills, like for example delaying Rough Divide, the second usage. It's not going to cost you too much, because like as long as you use that first usage and you don't overcap the stacks, it's also going to be fine. So that's why I think Gunbreaker is incredibly fun. It allowed me to combine basically 3 jobs that I loved since I started playing this game. It feels a lot like a melee DPS, because you are playing as a tank, which is a melee, but you still have that very intense rotation. On the other hand, it feels a lot like Machinist, because you have that 1-minute burst window where you want to keep all of your stuff aligned for over the course of that 1 minute, and then also you have slightly varying 1-minute bursts depending on where you are in your rotation. Every 3 minutes it resets, of course, and then you are still playing a tank, which is my favorite role in the game. So that is why I think Gunbreaker is just fantastic, because it is able to combine those 3 things into one. The 1-minute burst windows, where you want to keep everything alive for Machinist, the melee DPS aspect of playing a melee, and then still being a tank, where you have to be positioning the boss and making sure that you're going to be cooldowning correctly for all of those tank busters and stuff like that. So hopefully I was able to make people a little bit interested in Gunbreaker to try it out for themselves as well. It is definitely a different kind of tank if you compare it to all of the other ones that are in the game right now. If you were to compare them, Gunbreaker is probably a little bit less strong when it comes to their defensive cooldowns. Superbolite is also a little bit weird, but it is still pretty good in my opinion. I actually really like the way Superbolite works, because it is kind of like a better version of Holmgang, but it is still on a longer cooldown, so I think it actually balances out quite well. And then when it comes to their DPS, they are the highest DPS tank, even if it is by a very small margin. but I do really feel like the effort that you are putting into it is rewarded with the little bit of extra DPS that you get out of it. So that's pretty much my opinion on Gunbreaker, the reason why I love this job so much and why I'm going to miss it a little bit in the next year, because I am going to be playing caster for my static so far, unless something were to change, but I don't think it will. But I'll still be playing it plenty of times in party finders and stuff like that, because it is my favorite job after all, so I wouldn't just cast it aside just like that. But that's pretty much going to be it for me. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.